The URC has been very entertaining this season and it kept on delivering in the quarterfinals. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. So of the 4 quarterfinals that we had this weekend, I've actually covered 3 of them more comprehensively on the channel with individual reviews of the game. So you want more in-depth stuff on Munster, Ospreys, Leinster, Ulster or Glasgow Stormers, those are up on the channel, so go check them out. I was going to do Bulls Benetton, but I was actually sick yesterday for pretty much the whole day, so didn't get to do that one. But at least we can cover a little bit on this one. So as usual, we will do a quick summary of each of the games, talk a little bit about the teams, and then very quickly look at what that gave us in terms of the semi-final lineup. So we're going to start with the Friday game, which was Munster 23, Ospreys 7. Munster, they struck early in that one. Nash, brilliant take from high ball. They go to width. Hodnett with a great carry on the left. Kind of push back a little bit, the Ospreys defence being very aggressive, but then they go right, get it to Zebo, he goes outside Giles and grounds on the line. And for a guy who's already said that he's hanging up his boots, he's in great form and looks like he's going to go out with a bang, at least on a personal performance level. But then, also maybe going to end up with yet another trophy, with this resurgent Munster side. Ospreys then, they have penalty advantage around about halfway, but Ruben Morgan-Williams, lovely dink into space. Morgan Morris gets to the ball first, offloads inside to Giles, and he's just away. He's over to score, and the conversion ties it up at 7-7. I felt like at that stage maybe Ospreys, are going to make this a really close contest, but that really was the one real piece of quality that they produced for the whole game. They did have other chances, but this was the one where, they actually had the finish to it as well. Munster then have a penalty to go to the corner. Ospreys pinged for in at the side of the maul. Munster though continue to move it forward. Then Scannell, he breaks off and drives over. Did well to get the ball down because Williams was trying to hold him up. Then Munster back in that situation again. Scannell breaks off another maul. This time he stops short, but it's a penalty. And Ospreys get a warning for too many penalties. Crowley then stretches the lead from the tee. Then Ospreys have a period just before half time. Jack Morris, he goes close. Munster then drive Morgan Morris back to about 5 metres away from the line. And eventually the move fills out, but Ospreys still had a penalty for Peter O'Mahony closing the gap in the line out, and Munster have been given out a few penalties there. Ospreys then opt for a scrum because the scrum was going well. Munster though get the nudge and they win a penalty, and it was a massive moment in the game because you felt like if Ospreys got over for a score there, it was going to be a very competitive second half. Into the second half then, Munster win a penalty in the scrum, and I think it was a measure of how well Ospreys were defending at that point that Munster immediately, referee blows the whistle for the penalty, immediately you hear someone going, shot. And they take the shot and they stretch the lead. Then Sutton not rolling away, and Murray, he's on at 9, makes sure, that Holly Davison, the referee, notices it. And then Munster, they stretch that lead again, and it really was that ability just to pull away, not like at a canter. They were just basically pulling away every time they got a chance to pop it over a penalty and make Ospreys' job that little bit more difficult. And the problem that Ospreys had was they were defending really well, but they pretty much offering nothing in attack at all, and that's something maybe for them to address for next season. But Ospreys overall in this one, They obviously came feeling like they could maybe make a game of it, and looked like early on they could, but then just the whole thing of sometimes you get stuck in that mode of you're defending all the time. It's very hard to break out of that and get forward, and that's how they were in this one. But brilliant season from Ospreys. 2 rounds to go. They had like a 2% chance to qualify for the playoffs. They did what they needed to do. Other teams didn't, and they made it in, and justifiably so as well. Brilliant to see them there. I'm very happy for the Ospreys fans that they made it to the quarterfinals this year. It's been a while since we had a Welsh team in there, and hopefully, this is just a start of something big for Ospreys, and hopefully for the other Welsh regions as well. I've said it many, many times. I want to see all of the regions and the clubs and etc., the provinces in this competition doing well, and not just, I could be greedy and say I just want the Irish teams. Like I want one to four Irish teams finishing every year. They play the semi-finals against each other. Nobody else gets a sniff. But that's boring. Obviously, I still want my own team to win. But I want every team to be successful. If my team, Leinster, wins or doesn't win, I'd rather it be in a very competitive league rather than the way it used to be, where it was just right. It almost felt like at the start of the season you could just almost hand the trophy to Leinster, and that's no fun for anyone, even as a Leinster fan. But this competition is getting better and better, and Ospreys have been a huge part of that this year. So big congratulations to them, and hopefully again we see more from them next year. Munster, a team who last year really lit up the end of the season, especially the knockout stages, and this wasn't all bells and whistles or whatever. This was a team that have shown we did it last year and we know how to do it. And this is, we come into this game, it could have been a tight game, but we managed it so well. And I thought Crowley was excellent at 10. For them, there's some really great performances all over the Munster team. I mentioned Zebo earlier as well, but Munster, they're showing that they can win in multiple different ways, and that's what you want when you're going into knockouts. To have so many strings to your bow, and that's why I still feel that they're favourites to retain their title. Next, then we had Saturday game. So the early game was it was 2:00. It was the earliest of the games, at least. Bulls 30, Benetton 23. So Bulls, Leroux, I think it was the first minute, like a chip over the top. Aronsa gets to it, and then nice evasive running for him and well finished to get over. Rhino Smith then lands a penalty for Benetton. Then Forster for the Bulls, just a massive carry. He just kept going after contact. It was crazy. Then the ball is put out to the right, and Aronsa picks a really good line, and again those twinkle toes to get over to score his second. And I believe he's actually got a fractured cheekbone and it's going to be missing for that crucial semi-final against Leinster. He's going to be a massive miss for them. Guy is such a talented player and such a great finisher as well. We see lots of wingers who have that evasive ability, but couple that with the actual ability and the greed sounds like a bad word, but I think for a really good winger you have to be greedy and you have to be, okay, I'm going to be the one that's going to finish this. And I think he has that good kind of greed of wanting to score more and more tries, and I think it makes him a better player because of it. So he's going to be a huge miss for them. But then we have Brex and Fekatoa combining well, and they put Ratabi over as Benetton come back, and Benetton wouldn't go away in this one. And it's kind of, it's a measure of how much better Benetton gotten that, they went from kind of, being, they started out obviously back when it was Benetton and who, I can't even remember now who were the other team before Zebre come in. Old man brain again. But back then, like when they came in, and the two Italian teams were just like, kick them around. You had easy wins, right, home and away, whatever. It didn't matter. You were going to beat them. Then Benetton started getting competitive at home. Then they start winning games at home. Then they added being competitive away. Then they start winning away as well. And you see them every year, they're getting better and better and better. And for me, it's not a case of if they can win this title, it's a case of when they're going to win this title, because they're on that trajectory to be, they're going to eventually get into semi-finals and finals, and if you keep doing that, you're going to lift the trophy. And I think that's where this Benetton team are going. Maybe not necessarily this team itself, as it were, but they're laying the path for whoever comes beyond them to do. But there's nothing saying that these guys can't do it either. But from here, then Houston, he lands a couple of penalties to give, to kind of keep Bulls a little bit ahead, because they were either side of a Rhino Smith penalty as well. And then Albanos, then he picks his way through the Bulls defense from 5 meters out to score. And you're thinking Benetton, they're always close, but they're never kind of getting on level terms, and the Bulls just had that ability that every time Benetton come back at them, you're pulling away. It wasn't the best Bulls performance, but again, this stage now is just about getting that win, right? And probably for me, certainly the Bulls' best score tonight. Houston's, he breaks the line. Then, very evasive running, nice offload to Papier, and then he finds Creel and Sprace as he strolls over. And, Houston that's the thing, is that he's got that kind of all-court game, right? That he can attack the line himself, he can put somebody through space, he's got a great kicking game as well. And, I think for the Bulls, he really is doing so well for them there. I think he also is one of those guys who will demand the ball so they can get out to the backs. And we talked about previously where the Bulls sometimes can get that kind of tunnel vision and try and keep it in the forwards. But with Houston there, he's going to be saying, no, give me the ball. I see where the space is. Then we have some nice hands from Benetton, exploiting some space out on the right, and Fekitoa goes over to score. And then, then I think it's a 4-point game at that stage. And Houston lands a penalty about 5 minutes to go and leaves Benetton needing a converted try to tie it up, which they couldn't do. So again, Benetton, personally, I think, they had a brilliant season. It would have been a real shame if they hadn't got through to the knockout stages. So I was glad to see them here. I'm glad to see as well, especially after going down there and getting pretty well beaten, like it was 50 something points to 35, a few weeks ago against the Bulls, give them a better game in this one as well. There was no kind of indication, though, that that Benetton were going to cause an upset and win the game, because they never really got themselves ahead in the game. But still being competitive, that will give them confidence now going into future seasons. The Bulls, they always seem to come into good form coming into knockout stages, but then for whatever reason, they haven't been able to actually finish the job off. So maybe this year is going to be the year that they do it. A lot of people saying, even in a home semi-final, that they're not the favourites, and I think that's crazy. Look at this Bulls team. Look at the quality in that team. Don't mind about who their opponents are. Look at those guys. They're going to be Loftus, and they know they can deliver at home, and that's going to be the big thing. Is that they're going to go into that semi-final thinking everybody's writing us off. We know what we can do. We know the quality we can bring, the strengths we can bring, the power we can bring. Let's prove them all wrong. I think that's how they're going to go into that semi-final. Next, then we have Leinster 43, Ulster 20. So first of all, Jimmy O'Brien claims a high ball really well, and that helps Leinster get on the front foot, move upfield through Josh van der Fleer. Furlong just saying, oh, let me just remind you, how good I am at doing his Johnny Sexton impression, drawing one defender and beating another defender with his pass, puts Osborne through a gap. And Osborne's he's got Gibson Park on his shoulder. All he has to do is he sees the tackle coming, just draw the tackle, pass Gibson Park under the post. But he decides he's going to try and ride the tackle, which means Gibson Park overruns him, so he can't pass to him. But luckily he's got Henshaw on his right, pops out to him, and Henshaw goes over to score the opening try. Then we have a high tackle from Addison, and then Byrne lands that penalty to make it a 10-point lead for Leinster. Then Byrne puts low away. He rides a couple of tackles and goes over to score. Then, we get a bit of a response from Ulster. Cooney puts up a great kick into Leinster 22, and O'Brien knocks it on, and Henshaw claims it from offside position. So Ulster decide we need to get some points on the board. So Cooney pops that over for them. Then Ross Byrne with a lovely crossfield kick to Lowe. Lowe half volleys it forward and then kicks it again, gets there to pounce on it to score. And it feels like, the little breaks like that are going Leinster's way at this stage. Ulster then go to the corner from penalty. Maul's making ground. Porter pulls it down. Herring, though, breaks off and he puts McCann over to score. Then Leinster come back. They suck in that Ulster defence. Some good work from McCarthy and Doris in the build-up. Then they go wide and Larmer is there over to score. McCluskey then with a lovely offload, and Ethan McElroy puts in a kick, more just about level, and I think he was level. People would may disagree, but I think he definitely was level for that. He gets to the ball first and he scores. Leinster then work the ball back into 22. They stretch the Ulster defence, and it goes out to who's it? Van der Fleer, I think, right? So Osborne, I think he puts Van der Fleer over to score, and it was one of these ones where he can just trot over to score. There's no real defence left at that stage. Leinster then win a penalty, go up the line, overthrow it, but Prendergast did really well to get there first. Baird then with a good carry, and Maloney crashes up through and over to score, just about stretched out to ground on line. Then the final score of the game, Lowry with just some really good pace to finish in the corner. Frawley trying to come across, but to no avail. So, Ulster, after the season they've had, just getting to a quarter final, is a big thing for them to finish off the season. And you see the positives that Richie Murphy's brought to them in that short space of time. Now that he's going to have a full kind of pre-season with his, charges, you would expect Ulster now to improve even more for next season. Probably need to recruit a few players as well, kind of get a little bit of that kind of mental side of things into the squad as well. Just that kind of will to win and that ability, to deliver on the big occasions. But it's a step in the right direction for them, given where they were, when Dan McFarland stepped down. Leinster, had the disappointment of the Champions Cup. Those guys, their first run out in this one. Good performance. I said it before the game that, the bench that they have, it was built for actually the way this game turned out. You get those couple of scores up around the kind of the 45, 50 minute mark, and then your bench comes on and it just helps you to stretch away, and it doesn't matter whether the opposition are scoring because you're scoring as well. And that's what they did. They just basically eased away from Ulster in the end, and that's what that bench is for. That bench is not there to win tight games. Maybe they will deliver and win a tight game, but that's not their that's not the thing that they're best at. What they did to Ulster is what that bench is best at, I think. Last game then was Glasgow 27, Stormers 10. So Glasgow, couple of penalties, get them out to an early lead. Stormers then hit back. Lebock, nice ball out the back to Haaland. He puts Feinberg and Gonmazulu through a gap. Then a lovely offload from him to Loader, who goes over to finish. And, game is a bit kind of close and tight to begin with. Haaland then spills a restart, and Tuipulotu, a great run back. Then he finds Cancellieri. He breaks through and over to score. And that felt like, for me, that, Stormers, they'd just gotten themselves back into the game, and then they gift points to Glasgow. And for me, at that point then, it felt like it might be, a long game for the Stormers. Stormers, though, they do hit back at least, playing with advantage, pounding away at the Glasgow line. Then the wet snipes and over to score. But then, it's Glasgow really, all Glasgow from there. Venter, he gets over the line, sustained pressure from Glasgow and that Stormers line. And it was one of those ones where, either it felt like Glasgow were going to get over or a Stormers player was going to the pin. Stormers then, right to death, they almost give Warriors a try. They had a 5 meter defensive line out, decided to throw it to a Glasgow player who then, saunters over the line to place it down, but the ball didn't go 5. So that didn't count. But then, right after that, they decide to play the ball behind their own line. Duplessis tries a chip, and Thompson gets to it for Glasgow and grounds as a score. So they did give them the final score of the game. So Stormers, they've gotten to the final in the last 2 years, and this one, this season hasn't been brilliant for the Stormers. The other seasons, they were up there, they were challenging the likes of Leinster at the top of the table, and you could see through the entire season that they were there, they were ready to mix it with the big boys, and they got a title, and then almost defended their title last year as well. But this year didn't have the best starts to the season, but then they got that machine going, especially in the second half of the season. They won 6 out of 7 games coming into this. They would have really felt like, that they had a real chance of going away and causing, an upset, against a Glasgow team who haven't performed in quarterfinals up to this point either. But it didn't really work out for them in this one. I felt at that point where, Hallant, I thought, he's a very good player and I really like him, but just that mistake at the restart, just gave Glasgow that little bit more momentum, and it meant that Glasgow kept keeping ahead of the Stormers. And a game like this, it really was about, both teams made a lot of mistakes at the start, but Glasgow found their composure first, and then they kept it through to the end, and they were able to eke away. So, Glasgow finally producing in a quarterfinal, so brilliant for them. Now, now they've got to go on to a semi-final and see can they do the same thing as well. They're going to go to Thomond Park, so that's going to be a different experience for them over there against the defending champions. But this is going to give them a lot of confidence going into that. And I felt like one thing about this quarterfinal, though, if Glasgow had been playing a more composed team early on in the game, maybe they would have found themselves behind, and maybe there would have been a different dynamic in the game. Stormers not as good as we've seen them in the knockout stages in the last 2 seasons, but Glasgow also flipping the script by actually performing in a quarterfinal. So fair play to Glasgow Stormers. They're definitely going to be back next year. I said before, that squad is just too good not to be up there challenging every season, I think. But Glasgow now, they've delivered once. Can they keep delivering? Okay, so that was our quarterfinals. Now let's have just a very quick look at what that gives us in terms of a semi-final lineup. So the first semi-final is on Saturday, June 15th, and it's 3 o'clock kickoff, and it is second seed Bulls versus third seed Leinster at Loftus Versfeld. It's on Premier Sports and RTE. And the other semi-final then is same day. It's a 6 o'clock kickoff. It's first place Munster versus fourth place Glasgow. So the top 4 seeds getting into the semi-finals. This is at Thomond Park. It's on Premier Sport and TG Car for anyone watching in Ireland. So I won't say any much more about those because we will have a preview. I'm thinking of doing maybe a preview for each, a preview first of all for the semi-finals, and then one for each of the games if we get the teams out in time for me to be able to do that, because sometimes the teams kind of come out a little bit late on a Friday, so we'll have to see how that goes. But that's the end of this one, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one.